A dentist vanished without a trace after leaving her practice in 1978, devastating her family and baffling investigators. 18 years later, a discovery in an abandoned building basement changes everything. If you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. We'd be happy to have you here with us. The phone call came at dawn, October 15, 1996. Patricia Williams had been awake anyway, grading papers for her elementary school class in Denver, when Detective Sarah Martinez's voice cut through the morning silence. Construction workers, renovating the old Telluride Medical Building, had found something in the basement, something that belonged to her mother. 24 hours later, the musty basement air filled Patricia's lungs as she descended into the storage area where her childhood had ended 18 years earlier. The white dental coat lay crumpled against the concrete wall, stained with dirt and time, but unmistakably familiar. Her hands trembled as she recognized the embroidered name above the pocket. Dr. Margaret Williams, DDS. Professional skepticism marked Detective Martinez's expression as she watched Patricia's reaction to the discovery. "Are you absolutely certain this belonged to your mother?" Martinez asked, making notes on her clipboard. Patricia nodded, unable to speak. The coat still carried the faint scent of dental antiseptic beneath years of basement dampness and decay. Heavy machinery, old medical equipment, and forgotten filing cabinets created a maze of hiding places throughout the basement storage area. The coat had been wedged behind a massive X-ray machine, invisible to casual inspection. Workers had only found it while moving equipment for the renovation project that would convert the building into modern office space. Memories flooded back as Patricia shared details she'd rehearsed in nightmares for 18 years. "Mom always stayed late on Thursdays to finish patient charts," she told Martinez, staring at the coat. "She called me around 6 that evening, said she'd be home by 8 for dinner. When she didn't show up by 10, I called the office. No answer." 6 months of investigation had yielded nothing before the case went cold in 1979. Martinez reviewed the file while Patricia examined her mother's coat more closely. No witnesses, no evidence of foul play, no financial irregularities. Dr. Williams had simply locked her office and disappeared between the dental building and her car in the parking lot. Unexpected resolve replaced the grief Detective Martinez had anticipated from the victim's daughter. "I want to reopen this case," Patricia announced, her teacher's voice carrying surprising authority. "This coat changes everything. Someone put it here deliberately, which means someone knows what happened to my mother." Martinez shook her head slowly, citing limited resources for cold cases. Kneeling beside the coat, prayer sustained Patricia through years of unanswered questions, just as it had this morning. "Lord, give me strength to find the truth about what happened to Mom. Help me bring her justice and peace." The words steadied her resolve. Her mother had been devoted to her patients and her family. Voluntary disappearance was impossible. Strange coincidences during the past week suddenly seemed less innocent now that Patricia stood where her mother's coat had hidden. Cars she didn't recognize had been parked on her Denver street for days at a time. Always different vehicles, always with tinted windows, always gone by morning. She'd assumed they belonged to visiting relatives or new residents. Deliberate concealment required intimate knowledge of the building's layout and access to basement storage areas. Someone had taken her mother's coat and hidden it carefully in this basement. Patricia realized the killer might still live in Telluride, might have been watching her family all these years, waiting for this moment when the past would resurface. A decision that would consume the next month of her life crystallized as they prepared to leave the basement. "I'm taking a leave of absence from teaching," Patricia informed Martinez. "I'm moving to Telluride temporarily to investigate this myself. If the police won't reopen the case officially, I'll find the truth on my own. My mother deserves justice." Hidden in the coat's inner pocket, a small, leather-bound appointment calendar waited with pages yellowed, but still legible. The final entry, written in her mother's careful handwriting, was dated October 12, 1978. The last appointment showed 7:30 p.m. for emergency basement heating repair, but the patient's name had been deliberately scratched out with thick black ink. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to hear more stories like this one. Dawn broke over Telluride's snow-capped peaks as Patricia spread her mother's appointment book across the small hotel desk. Each page told the story of a dedicated dentist who treated everyone from wealthy tourists to local miners' families. The final weeks showed a normal schedule until those last mysterious entries appeared in early October 1978. 3 blocks from her hotel, the old Telluride Medical Building had been transformed into trendy law offices and real estate agencies. The dental suite where her mother had practiced now housed a marketing firm. The receptionist, a young woman named Lisa, listened sympathetically as Patricia explained her connection to the building's history. Henry Clark arrived within an hour of Patricia's phone call, his weathered hands still strong despite retirement from building maintenance. "I worked here 32 years, he told Patricia in the lobby. "Your mother was the kindest person in this building, always asked about my family, always stayed late to help patients who couldn't afford treatment during regular hours." Memories of various repair crews flooded Henry's mind as he walked Patricia through the building's basement levels. "We had all kinds of workers back then, plumbers, electricians, heating specialists. There was this one fellow, Jeffrey Thompson, came through that fall to upgrade our heating system, kept to himself mostly, worked odd hours, always seemed nervous around people, especially women." "Tell me about my mother's practice," Patricia requested as they climbed back to the main floor. Henry's eyes brightened with genuine affection. Dr. Williams treated everyone the same, rich or poor. During the mining strike in '77, she treated workers' families for free. Said healthcare was a right, not a privilege. Everyone in town respected her. Afternoon sunlight filtered through autumn leaves as Patricia knocked on Robert Johnson's door, 3 houses down from her childhood home. Robert, now in his 60s, had been her family's neighbor and her mother's close friend. His embrace felt genuine, but something flickered in his eyes when she mentioned the discovered coat. "Your mother seemed worried those last few weeks," Robert admitted, as they sat in his living room surrounded by photos spanning decades of neighborhood gatherings. "She mentioned getting strange phone calls at the office, said someone had been asking detailed questions about her schedule, when she stayed late, whether she worked alone." Nervous energy radiated from Robert as Patricia pressed for more details about her mother's final days. His hands trembled slightly when he poured coffee, and he avoided direct eye contact when describing his own activities during that October period. "I offered to walk her to her car those last few evenings, but she insisted she was fine." The Telluride Public Library's newspaper archives painted a picture of a community shocked by Dr. Williams' disappearance. Headlines from October and November 1978 showed escalating concern. "Local dentist missing, search continues for Dr. Williams. Community rallies for missing mother." The articles mentioned a brief investigation but no suspects or substantial leads. Back in her Denver apartment the following week, subtle changes created an unsettling atmosphere Patricia couldn't quite identify. Her coffee mug sat on the wrong side of the kitchen counter. A book she'd left on the nightstand now rested on the dresser. The bathroom medicine cabinet door stood slightly ajar when she always kept it firmly closed. Paranoia began creeping into Patricia's daily routine as she noticed more displaced objects over the following days. Someone had been in her apartment, moving things just enough to be noticed, but not enough to prove deliberate intrusion. The realization that her investigation had already attracted dangerous attention both terrified and motivated her. Detective Martinez returned Patricia's call 3 days later, her voice carrying professional courtesy mixed with obvious reluctance. "I've reviewed your mother's case file thoroughly," Martinez said. "The original investigation was handled by Officer Michael Davis, who's now retired. Without new physical evidence, reopening a cold case requires significant justification that frankly doesn't exist yet." The most disturbing revelation came through Robert Johnson's nervous confession during their second phone conversation. "I probably should have told you this earlier," he admitted. "Your mother mentioned that someone had been calling the office for weeks before she disappeared, always asking when she worked late, whether she was alone, what time she usually left. She was scared, Patricia, really scared." Former patients filled the Mountain View diner as word spread that Dr. Williams's daughter had returned to Telluride. Elderly miners and their wives approached Patricia's table throughout the morning, sharing memories of her mother's gentle care and affordable treatment. Each story painted the same picture of a beloved community figure who had vanished without explanation. "You should talk to that police officer who handled the case back then," suggested Martha Stevens, a retired teacher whose dental work had been Dr. Williams's specialty. Officer Michael Davis interviewed everyone multiple times. Real thorough fellow, asked lots of questions. He might still have those old files somewhere if you can track him down. Business documents discovered in the town clerk's office revealed unexpected complexity in her mother's dental practice. Thomas Wilson, a local businessman, had invested significant money in a planned expansion that would have doubled the office space. The partnership agreement, dated 6 months before her mother's disappearance, showed substantial financial commitments from both parties. Retired Officer Michael Davis agreed to meet Patricia at the police station. though his demeanor seemed guarded from the moment she introduced herself. "I remember your mother's case well," he said, settling into a chair across from her. "We conducted a thorough investigation, interviewed everyone who knew her, searched every possible location. Sometimes people just leave and we never find out why." "May I see the original case files?" Patricia asked directly, hoping access to police records might reveal overlooked clues. Davis shifted uncomfortably in his chair and avoided eye contact. "Most of those old files got damaged in a flood we had here about 10 years ago. Water destroyed a lot of our records from the 70s and 80s. Something about Davis's explanation felt rehearsed, as if he'd told this story many times before. His quick dismissal of her mother's case and reluctance to discuss specific details raised Patricia's suspicions. "Did you ever consider that someone might have harmed her?" she pressed. Davis stood abruptly and announced their meeting was over. Thomas Wilson's construction office occupied a converted warehouse on the edge of town, its walls lined with blueprints and photos of completed projects. Wilson himself appeared nervous when Patricia explained her purpose, his hands fidgeting with paperwork while she asked about the dental practice partnership. "That was a long time ago," he said. "I lost a lot of money when your mother disappeared." "What exactly did the partnership involve?" then Patricia continued, noting Wilson's obvious discomfort with the subject. He explained that the expansion would have tripled his investment return within 5 years. "When she vanished, the whole deal collapsed. I had borrowed money against my own business to finance the project, nearly went bankrupt because of it." The anonymous note waited under her rental car's windshield wiper when Patricia emerged from Wilson's office that evening. Block letters spelled out a chilling message: "The past has sharp teeth." No signature, no return address, just the clear warning that someone wanted her investigation to stop. The note's paper felt expensive, suggesting the sender had resources. Fear crept into Patricia's daily routine as she realized her questions had attracted dangerous attention. Someone was watching her movements, knew where she parked, understood exactly what she was investigating. The note proved that her mother's disappearance involved more than a simple missing person case. Someone had killed her mother and was prepared to threaten Patricia to keep the truth buried. That night in her hotel room, Patricia knelt beside the bed and whispered the prayer that had sustained her through 18 years of uncertainty. "Father, guide my steps in this dark investigation. Help me find the truth about what happened to Mom and protect me from whoever wants to stop me." The words brought comfort even as danger circled closer. Research at the courthouse the next morning revealed a disturbing detail that no one had mentioned during her interviews around town. Her mother's dental practice had been burglarized exactly 1 week after her disappearance. According to the police report, filed by Officer Michael Davis, nothing of value had been taken despite the thieves having access to expensive dental equipment and patient records. Strange details emerged from the burglary report that Officer Davis had filed 1 week after her mother's disappearance. Expensive dental equipment remained untouched, while file cabinets had been thoroughly searched. The thieves had ignored thousands of dollars worth of gold dental materials, but spent time examining patient records and appointment books, suggesting they sought specific information rather than valuables. Robert Johnson's helpful nature during the original search now seemed suspicious under closer examination. Neighbors remembered how quickly he had organized search parties and how often he appeared at the police station offering assistance. "He knew your mother's schedule better than most people," recalled elderly Mrs. Henderson from across the street, always watching when she came and went. "Robert, I need to ask you something directly," Patricia said when she visited him again the following afternoon. "Did you have romantic feelings for my mother?" His face flushed red, and he looked away quickly. "That's not appropriate to ask," he stammered. "Your mother was a married woman when I first met her, and she was a widow when she disappeared." Defensive explanations poured from Robert as Patricia pressed him about his behavior during those critical weeks in 1978. "I was trying to help," he insisted, pacing around his living room. "Everyone in the neighborhood was worried about her. Yes, I cared about her deeply, but she made it clear she wasn't interested in anything beyond friendship after your father died." "Where were you on the night she disappeared?" Patricia asked, watching Robert's body language carefully. His hands trembled as he poured himself a drink. "I was home watching television, called her office around 9 to check if she needed anything, but there was no answer. That's when I started to worry something was wrong." Evidence supporting Robert's story came from multiple sources when Patricia checked with other neighbors. Mrs. Peterson confirmed seeing Robert's car in his driveway that entire evening. The local telephone company's records, which Patricia accessed through a friend who worked there, showed he had indeed called her mother's office at 9:15 p.m. from his home phone. Wilted roses appeared on Patricia's rental car hood the next morning, their stems arranged in a deliberate pattern that spelled out the word "stop." No note accompanied the dead flowers, but the message was clear. Someone wanted her investigation to end immediately, and they were escalating their warnings to make sure she understood the seriousness of their threat. Realization dawned that her questions around town had definitely attracted the killer's attention. The anonymous note and now the dead flowers proved someone was monitoring her activities closely. Patricia understood she was getting close to dangerous truth, but instead of deterring her, the threats only strengthened her resolve to find justice for her mother. Michael Davis's police work showed disturbing patterns when Patricia examined it more carefully with Detective Martinez's reluctant assistance. Several potential witnesses had never been interviewed despite living near the dental office. Davis had closed the case after only 4 months, though standard procedure required at least 6 months of active investigation for missing persons cases. Procedural shortcuts appeared throughout Davis's handling of her mother's disappearance. He had failed to canvass businesses near the dental office, ignored tips from concerned citizens, and never searched the building's basement storage areas. "It's like he wanted the case to go away," Martinez admitted when Patricia pointed out these irregularities. "I found something you need to see," said Henry Clark when he called Patricia that evening. "I was going through some old maintenance logs from 1978, and I found an entry that might interest you. Someone reported seeing a police car parked behind the dental building around 8:30 that night. The witness said it was unusual because patrol cars never used that back entrance. The witness still lived in Telluride, though now in her 80s and residing at the local nursing home. Eleanor Martinez, no relation to Detective Martinez, remembered that October night clearly because she had been walking her dog when she noticed the unusual police presence. Officer Davis was standing by the back door of the medical building, she told Patricia. Seemed nervous, kept looking around like he was waiting for someone. Medical records from Telluride General Hospital painted a clear picture of Robert Johnson's whereabouts during the critical period of her mother's disappearance. Emergency surgery for acute appendicitis had kept him hospitalized from October 10th through October 15th, 1978. The detailed surgical notes and nursing charts showed he had been under heavy sedation on the night her mother vanished. "This eliminates Robert completely," Detective Martinez confirmed as she reviewed the hospital documentation with Patricia at the police station. "There's no way he could have left the hospital that night. He was recovering from major abdominal surgery and connected to monitoring equipment. We can cross him off the suspect list definitively." Frustration mixed with relief as Patricia processed this development in Robert's case. While she was glad her mother's friend was innocent, eliminating him meant starting over with other leads. "I wasted 2 weeks focusing on Robert," she told Martinez. "Meanwhile, the real killer knows I'm getting close and is trying to scare me away." Thomas Wilson's construction business showed signs of severe financial strain during the fall of 1978, according to records Patricia obtained from the county clerk's office. Multiple loans, delayed payments to suppliers, and threatening letters from creditors painted a picture of a man desperate for the money her mother's dental practice expansion would have provided. Bank records revealed that Wilson had borrowed heavily against his personal assets to finance the dental partnership. "I mortgaged my house, my business, everything," Wilson admitted when Patricia confronted him with the documents. "When your mother disappeared and the project died, I nearly lost everything. Took me 5 years to recover financially from that disaster." Nervous energy radiated from Wilson during their second meeting at his office. His hands shook as he poured coffee, and he kept checking his watch as if expecting someone else to arrive. "Why are you asking all these questions?" he demanded. "The police investigated me thoroughly back then. I had nothing to do with what happened to your mother." "Did you have insurance on the partnership investment?" Patricia asked, noting Wilson's increasing agitation. He shifted uncomfortably in his chair before answering. "There was a clause about recouping losses if the partnership dissolved due to death or disappearance. Standard business practice. But I never collected on it because your mother was declared missing, not dead." All 4 tires on Patricia's rental car had been slashed when she emerged from Wilson's office that evening. Clean cuts through the sidewalls made driving impossible and sent a clear message that someone wanted her investigation to stop immediately. The damage would cost hundreds of dollars and strand her in Telluride for at least another day. Fear began replacing determination as Patricia realized how vulnerable she was in this small mountain town. Someone was watching her every move, knew exactly where she parked, and was willing to escalate their warnings. The systematic nature of the tire slashing suggested careful planning rather than random vandalism, which made the threat even more terrifying. Standing beside her damaged car in the empty parking lot, Patricia whispered a prayer for protection and strength. God, protect my family and give me courage to continue this search for truth. I know you're watching over me, but I'm scared of what might happen next. Please guide my steps and keep me safe. Wilson's defensive posture crumbled when Patricia presented him with credit card receipts, showing he had been in Denver during the week of her mother's disappearance. I was meeting with potential investors, he explained, producing hotel bills and restaurant receipts. You can verify everything with the Marriott downtown. I stayed there from October 9th through October 16th. Evidence that someone had been systematically destroying documents related to her mother's case emerged during Patricia's research at various government offices. Fire department records, building permits, and business licenses from 1978 showed gaps where files should have existed. Someone with access to official records had been covering their tracks for 18 years. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to hear more stories like this one. Travel documentation from the Marriott Hotel in Denver confirmed that Thomas Wilson had been attending investor meetings throughout the week of her mother's disappearance. Credit card receipts, hotel registration, and witness statements from other attendees provided an airtight alibi. Wilson was officially eliminated as a suspect, leaving Patricia with more questions than answers about who had killed her mother. Michael Davis's police record revealed a pattern of questionable decisions and internal complaints throughout his career. 3 separate investigations had examined his handling of evidence, his relationships with informants, and his frequent absences during important cases. The personnel file painted a picture of an officer who bent rules when it suited his purposes. Financial records from 1978 showed that Davis had accumulated massive gambling debts at illegal poker games in nearby Aspen. Casino owners and bookmakers had been pressuring him for payment throughout that fall. He owed money to some very dangerous people, explained retired Detective Frank Morrison, who had worked with Davis. Everyone knew he was in trouble. Someone paid Davis to mishandle my mother's case, Patricia told Detective Martinez as they reviewed the evidence together. Missing witness statements, unsearched locations, and ignored leads suggested deliberate sabotage rather than incompetence. Davis had systematically avoided investigating anyone who might have led to the real killer, protecting someone with enough money to buy police cooperation. Confrontation became inevitable when Patricia arrived at Davis's house unannounced that evening. You deliberately destroyed my mother's case, she accused him directly. Someone paid you to ignore evidence and rush the investigation to a close. I want to know who hired you and how much they paid. Davis's face flushed red with anger and embarrassment. You need to stop making accusations you can't prove, Davis warned, stepping closer to Patricia in a threatening manner. I'm still friends with people at the police department. Keep pushing this, and I'll have you charged with harassment and interference with a police officer. Go back to Denver and forget about this ancient history. Shattered glass covered Patricia's hotel room floor when she returned from dinner that night. Someone had thrown a rock through her window while she was out, leaving a clear message that the threats were escalating. The rock was wrapped in newspaper with a specific article circled, "Tourist dies in hiking accident," from the previous week's local paper. Safety concerns forced Patricia to move in with Henry Clark and his wife after the hotel management refused to provide adequate security. You can stay in our guest room as long as necessary, Henry offered. Whoever's doing this is getting desperate, which means you're close to something they don't want discovered. We'll help you see this through. Hidden connections between Davis and organized crime figures emerged when Patricia examined old arrest records from the late 1970s. Davis had frequently arrested the same group of criminals, but never pressed charges, suggesting some kind of arrangement. One name appeared repeatedly: Vincent Marconi, a loan shark known for violent collection methods who had mysteriously left Colorado in 1979. Desperation showed in Davis's behavior as Patricia's questions around town made his corruption more obvious to longtime residents. He began calling people Patricia had interviewed, asking what they had told her, and warning them to stop cooperating with her unofficial investigation. His erratic actions only confirmed that he was hiding something significant about her mother's case. I saw something back then that never made sense until now, revealed Janet Miller, a retired bank teller who had worked near the police station in 1978. Officer Davis met with a man in an expensive car behind the bank one night in November. The man handed him an envelope, and Davis looked very nervous about the whole exchange. The revelation that Davis had been paid to cover up her mother's murder, rather than commit it, changed everything about Patricia's understanding of the case. Someone else had killed her mother, someone with enough money and connections to buy police protection. Davis was corrupt and complicit, but he wasn't the actual murderer she needed to find. Broken by weeks of mounting pressure, Michael Davis finally agreed to meet Patricia at a secluded coffee shop outside town. His hands shook as he poured sugar into his coffee, and dark circles under his eyes suggested he hadn't been sleeping well. "You're right about everything," he admitted quietly. "I was paid to mess up your mother's case, but I didn't kill her." "Who paid you?" Patricia demanded, leaning across the small table to catch every word. Davis looked around nervously before answering. "Jeffrey Thompson, the heating repair guy who worked in the building. He gave me $5,000 to lose evidence and avoid certain leads. Said he'd kill my family if I didn't cooperate with his plan." Details about Thompson's violent past emerged as Davis explained why he had been so terrified of crossing him. Thompson had a record in 3 states for attacking women, Davis revealed. Always picked victims who were alone, always used his work access to get close to them. "He told me exactly what he'd done to your mother, just to prove he'd do the same to my wife." Building maintenance records confirmed that Thompson had possessed keys to every area of the medical building, including basement storage, where her mother's coat had been hidden. Henry Clark remembered Thompson's preference for working evening hours when the building was empty. "Said he concentrated better without people around," Henry explained. Should have known something was wrong with that excuse. Evening schedules gave Thompson perfect opportunity to encounter her mother when she stayed late on Thursdays. "He knew everyone's routines," Henry continued, reviewing his old work logs. "Thompson had been in the building for 3 weeks before your mother disappeared. Plenty of time to learn her schedule and plan whatever he was going to do." Suspicious behavior during those final weeks now made perfect sense in light of Thompson's guilt. He kept asking questions about Dr. Williams, Henry recalled. Wanted to know if she always worked alone, if anyone else had keys to her office, what time the cleaning crew left. Claimed he needed to coordinate his work schedule with everyone else's. Official records showed Thompson had left Telluride on October 15th, just 3 days after her mother's disappearance. His forwarding address led to a post office box in Grand Junction that had been abandoned within a month. "Smart enough to disappear before anyone suspected him," Davis admitted. "By the time I realized he was the killer, he was long gone." Face-to-face confrontation came unexpectedly when Patricia was walking back to her car from the grocery store that evening. A tall man in work clothes approached her in the parking lot, his eyes cold and calculating. "You're Margaret Williams' daughter," he said without introduction. "You look just like her, same stubborn expression she had when she wouldn't cooperate." Recognition hit Patricia like a physical blow as she realized she was standing face-to-face with her mother's killer. Thompson appeared older and thinner than she had imagined, but his presence radiated the same menace that had terrified Officer Davis into corruption. "You've been watching me," she said, fighting to keep her voice steady despite her terror. "Jesus, help me do what's right and protect those I love," Patricia whispered under her breath as Thompson stepped closer. The prayer gave her strength to stand her ground instead of running. Thompson smiled coldly when he heard her words. "Your mother prayed too, right before I killed her. Didn't help her much, did it? You're not the first to try, nor will you be the last to fail," Thompson warned, his voice carrying the confidence of someone who had evaded justice for 18 years. "Stop asking questions, or you'll end up like your mother. I've been planning for this day since I saw that coat on the news. Time to finish what I started." The shocking revelation that Thompson had never left Telluride explained how he knew about Patricia's investigation and could monitor her activities so closely. He had been living in the area under a different identity for 18 years, watching her family, waiting for the day when someone would discover enough evidence to threaten his freedom. Public records revealed that Jeffrey Thompson had been living as James Tucker for the past 18 years, working various construction jobs around the Telluride area. His false identity included a social security number obtained through identity theft and employment records that showed steady work with local contractors. The man who killed her mother had been hiding in plain sight for nearly 2 decades. Detective Martinez coordinated with state police to establish surveillance on Thompson's current residence, a rundown trailer on the outskirts of town. "We need to be extremely careful," Martinez warned Patricia during their planning session. "If he realizes we're onto him, he might run again or become violent. This man has nothing left to lose at this point." Careful observation of Thompson's daily routine revealed patterns that would allow police to approach him safely. He left for work each morning at 7, returned home by 5, and spent evenings alone in his trailer watching television. Martinez planned to arrest him during his lunch break when he would be isolated from potential hostages or weapons. Mountain wilderness 20 miles from Telluride held the secret Thompson had protected for 18 years. Under interrogation following his arrest, he led police to a remote ravine where her mother's remains lay buried beneath rocks and fallen timber. The skeletal evidence confirmed that Dr. Margaret Williams had been murdered on the night she disappeared. Forensic examination revealed the brutal details of her mother's final moments. Thompson had attacked her in the medical building's parking lot, strangled her during a robbery attempt, then transported her body to the mountain burial site using his work truck. Dental records definitively confirmed the victim's identity after 18 years of uncertainty and hope. Criminal history searches across multiple states painted a horrifying picture of Thompson's violence against women. 7 unsolved murders in Colorado, Utah, and Wyoming showed identical patterns. Lone women attacked near their workplaces, bodies hidden in remote locations, investigations hampered by destroyed evidence. Patricia's mother was just one victim in a long series of crimes. Physical evidence linking Thompson to the crime emerged when police searched his trailer and found her mother's jewelry hidden in a toolbox. The distinctive gold bracelet her father had given her mother for their anniversary provided undeniable proof of Thompson's guilt. DNA evidence on the jewelry matched samples taken from the remains. Blocked escape routes became Thompson's desperate strategy when he realized police had surrounded his trailer during the arrest attempt. He barricaded himself inside and threatened to burn down the building rather than surrender. "You'll never take me alive," he shouted through the window. "I've got nothing left to lose, and I'm taking someone with me." Dangerous escalation marked Thompson's behavior as he realized his 18-year run from justice had finally ended. Police negotiators worked for hours trying to convince him to surrender peacefully. Thompson demanded to speak with Patricia directly, claiming he had information about other victims that only she would understand the importance of discovering. "Stop before it's too late for everyone," Thompson warned during his phone conversation with Patricia from inside the barricaded trailer. "I've killed 7 women in 4 states, and I know where all the bodies are buried. If you want those families to have closure, you'll call off the police and let me walk away." Terror mixed with determination as Patricia refused Thompson's demand for freedom in exchange for information about his other victims. "You're going to pay for what you did to my mother and those other women," she told him firmly. "Justice may have taken 18 years, but it's finally here. You can't run or hide anymore." Escape during the standoff shocked everyone when Thompson somehow slipped past police surveillance and vanished into the surrounding forest. Within hours, Patricia received a terrifying phone call. Thompson had taken her friend Helen Clark hostage at Henry's house and was demanding Patricia come alone in exchange for Helen's life. Heavy police presence surrounded Henry Clark's house as Thompson barricaded himself inside with Helen as his hostage. Squad cars blocked every street leading to the property, while sharpshooters took positions on neighboring rooftops. The quiet residential neighborhood had become a war zone as officers prepared for the worst possible outcome. Against direct orders from Detective Martinez, Patricia arrived at the scene and demanded to be involved in the negotiations. "He specifically asked for me," she argued with the incident commander. "Helen's life is in danger because of my investigation. I need to be part of whatever happens next." Martinez reluctantly agreed to let Patricia participate under strict supervision. "I want to talk to Patricia Williams and nobody else," Thompson shouted from inside the house when police attempted to establish communication. "Send her to the front door alone, or I start cutting pieces off this old woman. You have exactly 10 minutes to decide." His voice carried the desperation of a man with nothing left to lose. Negotiation through a police megaphone felt surreal as Patricia found herself talking to her mother's killer while Helen's life hung in the balance. "What do you want from me?" Patricia called out. Thompson's response came immediately. "I want you to hear the truth about what happened that night. Your mother's last words, what she said about you before I killed her." "Your mother was leaving the office when I grabbed her in the parking lot," Thompson confessed, his voice echoing from the house's interior. "I just wanted money for drugs, wasn't planning to hurt anyone, but she started screaming and fighting, so I had to shut her up. The whole thing went wrong so fast." Details of the crime poured out, as Thompson described moving her mother's body to prevent immediate discovery. "I panicked after she died," he continued, "used my work truck to take her up the mountain, buried her where nobody would ever look. Then I came back and hid her coat in the basement to throw off the investigation." Years of watching Patricia's family from a distance had tortured Thompson with guilt and paranoia. "I saw you graduate from high school," he revealed. "Watched you go to college, become a teacher. Part of me wanted to confess just to end the waiting, but I was too much of a coward to face what I'd done. Let Helen go and I'll come inside." Patricia offered, following the script police negotiators had prepared. Thompson considered the proposal for several long minutes before responding. "You come in alone. No weapons, no wire. I want to see Margaret's daughter face to face before this ends. She deserves to know everything." Psychological pressure finally broke Thompson as he realized 18 years of freedom were ending forever. Through the window, Patricia could see him pacing frantically while holding a knife to Helen's throat. His movements became increasingly erratic as police sirens wailed in the distance and helicopters circled overhead. SWAT team intervention became necessary when Thompson's mental state deteriorated and he began making threats against multiple hostages. Flash grenades and tear gas forced him from the house, where officers tackled him before he could harm Helen or escape again. The arrest was violent but effective. Capture brought Thompson's crime spree to an end, but Patricia felt strangely unsatisfied as she watched police load him into the transport vehicle. Something about his confession seemed incomplete, as if he was holding back important details. The investigation that had consumed her life for weeks felt unfinished, despite achieving its primary goal. Unresolved questions nagged at Patricia, even as colleagues congratulated her on solving her mother's murder. Thompson's ability to evade capture for so long suggested he might have had help or resources that hadn't been discovered. She couldn't shake the feeling that someone else knew about the crime and had assisted in covering it up. Gunfire erupted during Thompson's transport to the county jail, when a masked gunman ambushed the police convoy on a remote mountain road. The transport vehicle swerved off the highway as bullets shattered its windows, coming to rest against a boulder while officers scrambled for cover. Thompson's accomplice had been waiting for exactly this moment to stage a rescue. Former Police Chief William Harrison removed his mask as he helped Thompson escape from the damaged transport vehicle. "I told you I'd get you out," Harrison said, cutting Thompson's restraints with bolt cutters. 18 years of keeping your secret, and you almost ruined everything by taking that hostage." The corrupt official who had orchestrated the cover-up was finally revealed. Chaos exploded as Thompson and Harrison grabbed Patricia from the police car where she had been riding as a witness. "She's our insurance policy," Harrison told his partner as they dragged her toward their waiting pickup truck. Gunfire continued between the accomplices and surviving officers, while Patricia became a hostage for the second time in 2 days. Mountain terrain provided temporary advantage as Harrison drove his truck up abandoned mining roads toward the old Silver Creek mine shaft. Thompson held a gun to Patricia's head, while Harrison navigated the treacherous paths that led deep into Colorado's wilderness. "Nobody will find your body up here," Thompson told Patricia. "Same place we dumped 2 of my other victims." Survival instincts kicked in when Patricia spotted an opportunity to escape as Harrison stopped the truck to remove a fallen tree blocking their path. She rolled out of the truck and sprinted toward the dense forest, using her childhood memories of hiking these mountains with her father to navigate the rough terrain. Physical confrontation became inevitable when Thompson caught up with Patricia near the mine entrance after she stumbled over loose rocks. He tackled her to the ground, but 18 years of rage gave her strength to fight back. She grabbed a sharp rock and struck him in the head, causing him to drop his weapon. Police helicopters appeared over the mountain ridge just as Harrison arrived to help Thompson subdue Patricia. The 2 killers dragged her into the abandoned mine shaft, hoping the underground tunnels would provide protection from police sharpshooters. Darkness and maze-like passages created a deadly game of hide-and-seek. Gunfight echoes filled the mine shafts as SWAT officers pursued Thompson and Harrison through the narrow tunnels. Thompson died instantly when police bullets found their target in the main chamber. Harrison surrendered only after running out of ammunition, finally ending the conspiracy that had protected Thompson for nearly 2 decades. Resolution came swiftly once Harrison confessed to his role in covering up multiple murders across 4 states. His testimony revealed a network of corruption that had allowed Thompson to kill with impunity. Within days, her mother's case was officially closed, and families of other victims finally received the answers they had been seeking. Emotional release overwhelmed Patricia at her mother's proper burial ceremony the following week. The entire town of Telluride attended, as Dr. Margaret Williams was finally laid to rest with the dignity she deserved. Patricia placed white roses on the casket while saying goodbye to the mother she had lost 18 years earlier. "God saw everything Mum went through that terrible night," Patricia whispered as she stood beside the grave after the service ended. "His justice may be slow, but it's certain. I couldn't have done this alone. His strength carried me when mine failed. Mom can finally rest in peace, and so can I." Peace filled Patricia's heart as she reflected on the long journey that had brought justice for her mother and 7 other innocent women. Sometimes God allows darkness to last for years, but His light always breaks through eventually. Mom's love lives on, and now her story can inspire others to never give up seeking truth and justice. If you enjoyed this story, write in the comments where you're listening from, and be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. I'll see you in the next story.